Good morning and welcome back to the Opportunistic Trader for September 24th, a Monday. This month is rolling on very, very quickly. I'm joined by Vince, my
Good morning.
Counterpart, my alter ego in New York. So I just want to say good morning to you. And
I thought I said good morning. My apologies.
No, I might have missed it. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to quickly touch on last week and Friday's action in particular. The week was slower than we would want. We had a good week. We were all over that S&P trade. It worked like a charm. Hopefully people were able to understand it and take advantage of it. Obviously, that trade is now gone. Friday's action, we sold the opening in S&P, and then we covered for probably an $8-9 profit. We, as Vince said before we went on the air, we had a cool trade in oil, and we sold oil up top, and it dropped.
What?
Actually,
Did kids not say cool anymore? I'm sorry. Was it a hot trade?
It was a good trade. It was a good trade. So we were able to sell that. We took in like 70 cents. We shorted more, made a little on the second trade, not as much. We just got a little bit nervous, and that market came off, and then got out of that trade. And then we attempted to get into cannabis with this Tilray, just for, as they say in Europe, a punt. The punt didn't work out. I lost about $8 on that small position. And we entered today flat. I think the month has been a good month. I think we had 25 actionable trades, or maybe 27. And I think we're 18 or 19 and 7. So good month. We're hoping not to screw it up into the last week of the month. Big week this week. We got the Federal Reserve 2-day meeting Wednesday, Thursday. Looking for an interest rate rise, and Tuesday, Wednesday. Sorry about that. Tuesday, Wednesday. Announcement Wednesday at 2:00. Looking for them to raise rates, and I think it's in the market, but I think they're going to be hawkish again.
Looking for the December potential rate hike. It's the trend I think they'll be looking at again, right?
Yeah, so we'll see on that. The big news over the weekend, I got like 5 texts from people. I used to get like 50, but now everybody gave up. But 5 texts from people saying the market is going to open down big. How big is it going to open down? Because China called off high-level talks with the U.S., so I literally didn't answer anybody's text because I always know that they buy them no matter what. And once again, the market's only down about $5. At most, it was down 10. The overnight range is actually kind of strange in the E-mini. It's very, very quiet. I think we might have a 6 or 7 handle range overnight. And in the last 3 hours, we haven't even moved 3 points. So I don't know why the market's asleep, but it is asleep. NASDAQ slightly underperforming S&P, or it was earlier this morning. The big news, I guess, over the weekend was that OPEC met, and Saudi Arabia basically told Trump to stay out of their business, and that they weren't going to increase supply. And the market's trading up about $1.26. I do think the market is a fade in here. I think the news is in the market. The market is high. Brent is trading over 80 again, or about 80. So we'll keep an eye on that market. Interest rates are yields are slightly higher. Bonds are slightly lower. It's going to be interesting. I think we're around 308 on the 10-year. And it'll be interesting if we get to 315, how fast they go to 3.25. That may happen Wednesday. Rates have got to have an impact at some point. We just can't keep going up and going up and going up on the rate side, and having the S&P make new highs every single time. But the market right now is in the mode where it's not listening to anything or anyone. and it's in buy mode, so you just have to keep that in mind. Gold is up $3, and the dollar is mixed across the board, maybe slightly weaker. The euro is up 22 pips. The yen is down 5. The Asian markets overnight were closed. Maybe Golden Week or something.
Japanese holiday
Yeah.
and Asian holiday, I think is the right way to
China's
look at it.
China was closed as well, so we didn't get really a read out of there. And across the board in Europe, slightly lower. Those markets also have not had a big range today. Interesting, just to look at the markets. Other than oil, nothing is really moving. So we'll keep an eye on those markets. Today is an option expiration. We're trading around 29.30, so we could look at the 30 straddle. It's pricing in less than $8, so it's not looking like a promising day for volatility, but we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. And overall, it's been a decent month here. We want to keep that intact, so we're going to really wait for some slow pitches. Hopefully, can see stuff develop, but we're not going to force anything into the last week of the month, and just take our month and be happy. I know you had a lot of macro thoughts and some individual equity thoughts. I'm interested to hear from you on that, Vince. So you're up.
All right, Larry, thanks. Okay, as you said, it's been very quiet here, and I think, as you also noted, it's in part due to the lack of activity out of Asia. Traders possibly are squaring up for the FOMC. Doesn't mean we won't have a lot of action the days that the Fed speaks, based on algo trading. But I think human beings are squaring up in anticipation of the ability to trade after the number. The couple of events over the weekend, consolidation, I think is a term, to get it out of the way. Sirius and Pandora are merging. That makes them the largest audio entertainment system out there. So I think we broadcast on Sirius. That might be kind of cool. Maybe that would put our channel, or When You Speak, under the 80s, the best of the 80s, Larry.
If we're lucky.
Right. The second thing is Trump. You got to talk politics when you're talking markets now. And two things happened. One, you've already basically described. OPEC basically said stay out of it, and oil has rallied on it. The other thing is China took out a 4-page ad in an Iowa newspaper, basically saying, I think that's China calling now. Basically, that's Trump calling, saying, don't talk about China. Basically saying that the president is doing you wrong. They're appealing to grain and fruit producers, basically saying how tariffs are going to hurt you. Now, this could backfire if Trump plays it properly. But I think the thing to take away from this is China's not stupid. They're playing the long game. They're trying to push Trump's buttons, and I'm sure his buttons will be pushed. There's going to be a big pushback, I think, on multiple fronts by the U.S. against China, possibly as early as this week. By multiple fronts, I mean the news, the law, the tariffs, and all these things, properly done, could be a good pushback against what China's doing. But if Trump gets, unleashed, it could be bad. Again, I've said this before. The Chinese people, generation ago, were eating tree bark. He doesn't know what he's getting involved with. These people are not going to quit. When a man says, I'm going to put $200 billion on tariffs, and finally does do it, simultaneously sending a good cop over for trade talks, China says this weekend, we're not going to have trade talks because you're not negotiating in good faith. They will destroy their own stock market. I'm being facetious, to win this, and that may not be good for investors.
I don't know what we think we're winning, like I have said every day on the air, it's affecting us more than it's affecting them.
Well,
Okay.
I used the word win in terms of competition. The losers are always, and to the point that you've made off the air, and we've discussed this all the time. The losers are always the consumers who end up having to pay higher prices for imports or higher prices for domestically made goods that are sub-quality. And the other losers are corporations that can't sell their products overseas. But in the win of Trump getting his way, whether it be right or wrong, versus China getting their way, whether it be right or wrong, I don't see how it's lose 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 basically. But I'm just saying we do have headline risk because of this stuff this week, like major headline risk. Like do not be surprised if a statement comes out, some sort of coordinated statement comes out that attacks China and Russia simultaneously. Russia is thrown in with China. We won't get into the details why, but I think there's going to be major rhetoric blowback. But moving away from that and onto something I think we could sink our teeth into. This is, believe it or not, indirectly about gold. There's a company, AMD, Applied Micro Devices, and I have been watching them for a couple months. And the reason I've been watching them is in March of this year, a research company named Viceroy, which is suspicious in nature, let's put it that way, put out a report, a bearish report on them. If you look at a weekly chart on AMD, and you can compare it with its peer group, would that be Intel or maybe Micron?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But Viceroy put this report out in March. And if you look at the weekly chart, it dumped for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And then it just took off out of nowhere. Now, I looked into Viceroy, and this is about AMD, although it sounds like it's about Viceroy. Viceroy really slams stocks, and they're either backed by a hedge fund or they are a hedge fund. And they've been quite successful with it. But AMD is their first, quote, failure, meaning it went down for a month and then it took off. And then their most recent research, and we're staying on AMD here, but I want to just touch on this. Their most recent slam was a company called Pretium, Pretium. PVG is the stock symbol. They're a resource company, and that stock, when their report came out about a week ago, that's a mining company out of Canada. That stock went down, and then it also took off in the face of the gold sell-off. Reason I'm talking about AMD today is because it's actually kind of your type of a trade for maybe different reasons. I looked at what happened to AMD, I looked at what happened to Micron, and I looked at the chip sector in general, and I simultaneously got a signal that AMD was overbought and sold it on Friday. So what I think is the stock has had a very nice run on the back of the shorts having to cover because Viceroy's report didn't do so well for them, or maybe it did, I don't know. And now I think it's overbought, overextended, and based on a couple levels, I'm short it now. And I wanted to get, that's the story. It goes from Viceroy to AMD, and then wow, AMD really got slammed, and then they rallied. And then I look at Pretium, which ignored the Viceroy report, and so now I'm back to saying, well, maybe AMD is a short because it's the other way now. And I'm asking you, after your trade in Micron and your experience in chips, do you have a feel for this industry as well as this stock?
Well, I would say that in 2000, I'm going to go back a ways. In 2006, I think, or 2007, I'm not sure, but my hedge fund was long 3.5 million shares of AMD.
Right.
Okay, at
This is
$2. I probably should have fell asleep for 10 years, but needless
right.
to say, one of our traders basically we had to sort of maneuver him from trading because the positions were too big in size, and
So he had a conviction that just could not be shaken.
and I think we ended up making small on the trade,
Right.
And then obviously now the stock, I looked at it. I don't really look at it all that often. It's $30. So
Right.
who
But
knows?
but
I
it
don't really have an opinion on it.
okay,
Again,
then help me out
I
with the
do.
chart. You're a chart guy who likes to who I've seen. Look, I'm gonna look. I have a system, but I look for correlations, and the correlation for me was, oh look, Viceroy's research works, and then it doesn't work. Now I look at AMD all the way up here, and all of a sudden I'm thinking like you, going, this looks overextended based
Well,
on what Mike.
AMD is a rah rah day trading
It is
sizable name that people love to day trade the momentum. So, I know
okay.
a lot of guys in that stock and in that space, and they day trade the momentum, and that stock, they love to buy it. So,
So the hourly chart would be fun to trade.
but it's
But
interesting. I see
you
the
see the weekly
NU.
chart. You see the weekly chart up there, right? It's like
Yes.
4 or 5 weeks of sell off after this research, and then boom, it explodes. And now I think it's just overdone. And the Micron, although Micron may not be the same exact industry,
But look at
Micron's selling.
Micron versus AMD is interesting. AMD straight up and Micron straight down. So maybe in Micron you'll get a little bit of mean reversion, but I'm not really that sure.
Well, there you have it. That was my point. I believe that a lot of the AMD rally was a reaction to the false information coming out of the or put it this way, unreliable information. This is my opinion, but I'll back it up if anyone wants to ask offline. But Viceroy is basically the opposite of a pump and dump company. They're a slam tool. Let me
I don't know who
pull
they
up
are. I don't
my
even know who they are.
they are, yeah, they're,
No, I
I've
don't
done the
even
work
know
on
who
them.
they are. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't even listen
But
to them then.
here's what I want to give you, and I want to ask you this, because look, I think equities are where to be on things like my system, because you can only do so much in gold. Which, by the
Oh,
way, I would
I
love to
wanted
talk.
to ask you a question. I might catch you off guard, but I saw that Barrick Gold did a deal today with another gold company. Did you
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
that up?
Barrick, and the biggest gold company in the world. My quick comment on that is, you will see vertical and horizontal mergers when the price of gold goes down. They're looking to consolidate their operating costs, scalability. Uh, uh, but I'm not a big fan of gold miners in general. It doesn't mean they're not buys, but look for more consolidation. But if you look at this consolidation, these two companies, it's not vertical like someone who finds gold is consolidating with someone who mines gold. These are two majors combining, and I think they're combining. And this is cynical. If you look at Gold Corp, if you look at that stock chart, we're looking at companies now, not gold. If you look at Gold Corp, the symbol is GG. That chart, after they missed earnings because they're not hedging properly, because they're not hedging currency risk properly, they were like the number 2, number 5 player in the world. They got slammed. And I think that's a warning to other big players to get their hedge books together, to get their organizations together, and to merge. And my comment is, any fish that is in danger of being preyed upon is going to run in schools. And I think these companies have to consolidate, look for more consolidation, but I really wouldn't know where to start, who benefits and who doesn't. Just keep an eye on John Paulson, by the way. He's starting a Gordon Gecko like value thing on these companies.
Really? I thought he was out of gold. I thought he threw the
Oh, no,
towel
no, no,
in.
no. Well, that's the thing. That's what you do. No, Paulson is a gold bug. Whether he's long or short gold, I don't know. But this is interesting for the industry.
Oh,
For
well,
the
he had a
stocks.
fund and the fund closed down. So I don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
he
he did. He
is.
did. He got hammered, no doubt about it. But he is now an activist. It's classic Gordon Gecko. Anyone who's listening would Google Paulson Gold Miners, and you'll see that he is now organizing investment funds that invest in gold mining shares, and he's calling out the miners, saying, you pay yourself in stock, which means you don't hedge your book. which means you hope the stock goes up, and if you lose money, you go to another miner. And it's like a Gordon Gekko speech. And one of his analysts, a guy named Kim, just destroyed. He came out as a bad cop, but this is happening. You're going to see more consolidation because of Paulson, who, in my opinion, is coming out too aggressively because he did get blown out. He's starting to sound like a bitter gold bug. But the gold mining industry is due for some consolidation. Doesn't mean it's going to rally, but it's definitely worth educating ourselves on when an activist investor like an Icon gets involved. I'm not saying Paulson's Icon. Watch what happens to the companies. They start to consolidate faster. Maybe they become more efficient. I think it's worth looking at, Larry, as a stock trade. Paulson is definitely a catalyst to some of this that's going on.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was doing. I thought he got out of gold already.
No, he's out of. That's the thing. He's out of gold. He wants to get back in, so he's bitching.
Well,
he's basically creating
probably
a
10%.
consortium. Adrian Day Asset, Tocqueville, him. All these guys are saying, we want you to run your companies better, and they're starting to become reactions. Although this stock merger you threw at me may be indirectly a product of that. I think it's more a function of when you look at Gold Corp and you look at how mismanaged, which is Paulson's point, this industry is. There's a need for consolidation. There's just not enough brains running these companies. That's basically it.
You know what? You gave me a little insight. I didn't know Paulson would even waste his time. I thought he was.
Oh, it's worth reading. It's worth if you want to. I mean, this is not about gold. Okay, this is about potential opportunity for active traders or that are looking for a catalyst. And I'm not saying buy gold stocks or sell gold stocks. I'm saying if you're listening out there, find the speech that this analyst Kim gave on behalf of Paulson's fund, where he just rips a new hole into the gold industry. And the gold industry basically gave him the finger. But now Paulson, as recently as last week, has gotten his 15 investors together, and they're going to start. Now, he doesn't have a lot of money in gold anymore, maybe $250 million of his own money. He's lost his third-party money. But he's now got Adrian Day Asset, Tocqueville, Sprott's not involved, but they may be. And basically what you're creating is we demand the companies to be run better. So there may be some arbitrage plays here coming up. I don't know, but the industry is going to be in play soon. So there might be some, things going on. You got me talking about gold, Laren. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, well, gold's at 1,200.
We're not talking about gold. We're talking about
waste.
Stocks. I think
I will point out something, a thought. Depending on how oil trades today, this could be a good opportunity to short it.
Short oil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only because it doesn't trade. It's up $1. Don't get me wrong; it's a lot, but it just doesn't feel that right. It's holding in here. I wouldn't be a seller here. I would actually be a seller about 40 cents lower for a position that I would sit in, hedged with options. But I'm right now not doing it. But at like the 71.45 area, I would start to put on a short, and I think the move could be over, and we might trade back down to 65, just because I don't really, again, everyone's talking supply, this supply. I mean, I don't know. I don't.
Fundamentals matter to a point, but just to chime in, because I think this is relevant.
We're at $72. We haven't been here in 5 years, and
Trump made a comment, right? OPEC ignored him. This oil rallies, so maybe oil is breaking free, or maybe oil is a sale. But there's definitely an extension.
But for them to even comment about Trump's comment is bizarre. Yeah. Why would the head of OPEC comment on Trump?
What? Tracy's online. I want her to chime in on the chat.
Okay. We'll wait and see if she's on. But that's my thought. I'm not going to sell here yet, but I want to be a seller. and I would sell at 71.50, 45 area, decent size. And then once we get below 41, I would get bigger, and I think we trade down here. But I'm not going to do that at this level because the market is relatively strong. So I'd like to see some weakness or backup, and then be able to sell a bit. That's what I see there. Bonds again not moving, and S&P is, since we've been on the air, it hasn't even moved a dollar. I don't know where people are. Do they think it's like June or July, or do they realize that we're going into October and the year is almost over? They're waiting. They're waiting. I mean, I don't know.
Well, if you remember, years and years ago, thousands of years ago, stocks used to go sideways before the Fed talked. Perhaps we're having a day of that. Perhaps it's like
but we got 2.5 days before the Fed.
Yeah.
So if we do this
before we got wheelchairs, the stock market used to do that. Comment about bonds. You made an all-fan comment just now, but it's actually, I think people should focus on that. Bonds are doing nothing now, is what you said. The important context is that bonds are no longer hitting the 3% area and getting crushed. They're stabilizing above 3% yield. Now, there are people out there who look at that as a correlation with gold. I disagree. There are people out there like yourself that look at it as a correlation with stocks. I do agree. What makes stocks sell off with bonds? What yield makes stocks sell off? I don't know what the yield is, but I do know that stabilizing above 3% gives people time to think, to look, and not see it as a fluke. And it adds weight to the pressure, if there is any pressure on the S&Ps. Personally, I would look for real interest rates to approach a positive number. And I don't know what that number is. Depends on who you're looking at, but that could be bonds at 3.2% might put real rates in the 2-year, positive. And then I look for real pressure on stocks. In the meantime,
I got to be honest with you. You can't look at rates at what real rates are. You got to look at what rates were, okay? And they were zero. And in probably 3/4 of the world, it was negative rates. Okay.
No, but
now we're at rates that are attractive.
No, you're right. I don't disagree with you. It's like what I'm saying makes sense in a snapshot, but when you put it in the context of what you just said, hey Vince, like let me just be you in a little bit more mean mode to me. You ready? Hey Vince, what makes you think that people give a damn, about rates, considering that we have 3% rates and the world's got negative rates, and nobody's buying our bonds? That can't be good for us. I mean,
well, I just think that rates are going to go back to normal, and people don't know what normal is. And if we go back to almost normal, you don't have easy money. You actually have tight money, and you have a Fed that's tightening, and the markets are just in complete denial. But, I'm not gonna get in front of that. I do think the catalyst, and there won't be any excuses after this. Like today, it's like, China's not talking to us. Nobody cares. Nobody even cares because next week.
By the way, apparently everything is cured in Turkey. That's not true, but that's to your point. Everything is stable at worst levels. How can this be good for us?
Well, it's funny. Mike and I, he was discussing it that, that the lira is like at a level that it's never been at, basically, and it's just sitting there and everybody's okay with it. So it's just strange action. But I will say this, and this isn't coming for another, I think, 45 days, but when Trump gets whitewashed in this election and they lose everything, okay, the market won't be able to ignore it anymore, and that'll be the beginning of a very large correction.
Okay, just to be facetious, that's a rally. Don't you know that the current administration is holding the stock market back, Larry? Come on.
I don't know anything about that.
No, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. But
well, it's the opposite of that, and I think that
Well, I did say I was being, facetious, but yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It's not good. It's not good.
Well, so we'll
Um,
see. But right now, the markets are in sleep mode. S&P is down 475.
right.
It doesn't go down. Nasdaq is heavier. I think Nasdaq. I'll look today again, and we'll have one of these days where the Dow will be green and the Nasdaq will be down 40,
And
and
the Dow will be up a
and
lot because
and
people are rotating.
right. But what is this? Every day they can't sell. If they're selling one index, they're buying another. I just I don't I don't
It
get
really
it.
has become hot money. It's really become a hot money market. I actually have a question related to something. I don't know, early onset Alzheimer's here. You were just talking about the administration. Look, there are two things. One of which I think we talked about offline. The midterms are big, and I think how it affects the stock market, I don't know. But there are two things, or as Greg would say, tape bombs that I don't think are really traders are as aware of as they should be. One, the Kavanaugh hearing. We're not going to get into the politics of it, but the Democrats, in my opinion, want to drag this on as long as they can. That will affect the midterms and hopefully win them more seats. Also, China, I think, is acutely aware of Trump's vulnerability during the midterms and will press, their bets on him. So it does seem that the world and the domestic politics are contriving or pushing on Trump's bluffs and weakness. So, whatever you believe the stock market will do if the midterms go against the Republicans, well, it looks like it's starting to lean that way. Just a macro observation in a micro market.
Yeah, again, I don't know how that's going to play out. It's just interesting to me about these hearings for the Supreme Court justice. I don't know.
No, but
I
the
think they're
point the
pulling
point I'm
out all
trying to
the
make is
stops.
not
I mean,
not
this stuff
not about
happened
the justice
40,
himself.
40
The
something
point is
years
this:
ago.
that if the
Where
Dems do have, we're not going to get into the minutia of it because it's not a political show, but the point is this that was raised to me by a fellow trader. He said, whether the Dems have a viable or a non-viable person to bring forward, if they have a non-viable person to accuse the judge candidate, then the longer they hold them back, that's going to be bad for the midterms. If they have a viable person, they'll put him forward. She'll come forward aggressively, and that will be bad for the midterms. So I don't give a crap about the justice election, but I am saying that whatever is being done is now political football for the midterms,
yeah,
and the Dems are playing from strength, even if you disagree with the basis for their argument. And China's playing from strength, and OPEC is playing from strength. It's like days that Trump has not embarrassed us, although I have respect for the rank of office. That days that Trump has not hurt himself or shot himself in the foot is now reset to zero. There's potential risk in headline risk all over the place now.
yeah. I don't think much gets done in the next 45 days. I think the Democrats are, slow playing that. But
Yeah,
again, I don't really want to get into all of that.
no, but slow plays the word.
The only reason why I point it out is because I think nothing is going to move the market. You're seeing, everyone was freaking out. He was going to put the tariffs on. He puts the tariffs on. The market doesn't do anything. Actually rallies. Okay. Now, they think that they have a secret deal or they're talking, and now they say they're not talking. They're not even close to talking. Nobody
Exactly.
cares. Nobody
But
cares.
but think about that. That kind of unravels. That gives a guy like Trudeau, who's not aggressive, that gives him, a little bit of goyons to stand up to Trump. That it just becomes a snowball when you're at the.
He's he
It's trading. People are calling his bluffs.
Trudeau is passive aggressive.
Oh, no doubt about that. Passive aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm doing my hair today. I'm sorry, I can't help you. But yeah, I mean, these things are are what happened domestically is now happening internationally, and unfortunately, it does not reflect on our stock market, but it will reflect on the people that have to buy goods in our country.
Well, that's everyone. Everyone's buying goods or making their own goods in China. So that's the biggest issue that we have. Or,
what does China make that we make?
What does China make that? What are you testing me? I don't know.
No, I don't mean that to be. I mean that more humorous. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Wait,
but let's try. If we get all of our sneakers from, okay, you know sneakers, right? If we get what are those little things at the end of sneakers called? Whatever those little laces. If we get all those from China, I'm going to buy a company in the U.S. that makes them. We'll be protected. You'll be buying all your shoelaces from me.
Yeah, the problem is, even with the 25% tariff, it's still cheaper to make it there. So Trump is crushing the economy. He's crushing producers. He's crushing manufacturers, and he's crushing the public. Right. And the funny thing is, China doesn't care. They're still making money. People like myself who used to produce in China,
but they're still making it.
Right, but we're still making goods in China. It doesn't matter what goes on. So the funny thing is, the only people that are getting hurt are the U.S. citizens that are going to be paying a 20% tariff.
Correct. And the U.S. companies. Your point being that with the tariffs, goods are still cheaper made in China than they are here. And that just compresses profit margins on U.S. companies.
Easily cheaper. So
Right.
So there's no way people are coming back, and I don't understand why he's doing it. I mean, he's like, China's not paying. Well, it isn't really China. It's every U.S. manufacturer that makes their goods there. So
you're right. I mean, what he's doing, actually, we should focus on, I should focus on, I don't want to get too much into politics, because I do want to save that for when I start later in the week, as you and Mike have been so helpful setting me up with a gold show. That's going to be got more politics in it. But he's with Japan now, and he's making veiled threats at them. I mean, they're our ally in a way that we need them, like Israel, in a sense that they're a presence out there, and he's going to start threatening them. I mean, come on. I mean,
I'm going to save. I'm going to get you off this. You could talk about it on your own show. So here, we're just looking markets.
All right, let's talk individual stocks. Help me out here.
Okay.
All right, give me a level, please, because I have my own level. But
in what?
Well, I'm short AMD.
Oh, I don't have a level.
Fine.
I don't.
So let's talk FANGs.
I would like to, before we talk to FANG, I would like to just go over really the craziest trade I've seen in probably 20 years, at least 15, 20.
Tilray?
Tilray and these marijuana stocks, it's not even normal. The exchange has culpability. What went on here on Wednesday, Thursday, and Tilray was a joke. Okay.
Right.
The stock rallied $100 and something, then sold off $80 or $100. Then it went to the high, I think, on Tilray was $300 on Wednesday, and now it's trading $100. I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous. I mean, it's great volatility, but it's not reality. It's not real. And unfortunately, or fortunately, day traders make money on this stuff or could lose, but they're in and out. It's the poor investing public that got destroyed.
Right.
Destroyed.
Does this stock chart not look like every stock in 1999 on the internet side?
Yeah, it does. I mean, this was pretty big. Again, the internet thing lasted a long time, though. I mean, they all ended up going, but it didn't happen until 2001. 2001, and this stuff happened in 98, 99. So it lasted 2.5, 3 years, and this is only hour one of this trade, so it'll be interesting to see. We spec'd in it. It was not good. We lost small. there'll be opportunities there, but when my nephew is calling me up, asking me what he should do in Tilray, and I'm like, and he's in college, and I'm like, you're in Tilray? He goes, yeah. He's like,
Oh my
he
God.
he was up like $4,000 on like 50 shares or something.
Oh my
I
God.
said you should take the money and run. So
Oh
hopefully
my
he
God.
did, but
Tell
everybody
him to
was in
roll it
it.
into Pepsi because they own like Funyuns, I think, right? I mean, it's got to be a hedge if you're a pot smoker.
Vince, you're the funniest. So anyway, those things were crazy on the week, and the fangs are slightly lower today. There's not much there. I think that this will weigh heavier on technology potentially. It's interesting, really the way China could hurt us is just by saying all Apple goods are banned from being sold in China.
Um,
And if they do that, that's the real deal.
well, I mean, they can I mean, they can do right. You're giving an extreme example. They could definitely take steps in that area. I mean,
What do you mean?
they're
They could
not a
do that in
democracy.
1
They
minute.
can just order their people to buy domestically. And, this is not a knock on China, but China is not like Japan in the sense that they don't have this is from a professor who stayed there for years studying their economy. Quote, he said, professor at UConn, he said, China's not known for innovation. They are known for replication. And whatever we do, they'll do. So we have this pesky democracy thing in the way. They can just tell their people, buy domestic products, or we're going to fine you. I mean, they fine people for having babies or not having babies. Why can't they start making knockoff Apple Watches and selling more of those? I'm not saying it's easily done, but they control their population better than our population is controlled, so to speak. So they can do that.
I don't think they need to even think about it. They could do it in 1 minute, and that would send a shiver down our spine. But we'll see. They're playing it mellow. But let's go back to just the markets in general and what I see. S&P, I don't really see much. I'm hoping that it goes a little bit lower, maybe create a trade there to the buy side. Not at this level, although it looks like it's holding. Bonds flat to the tick, nothing going on there. Oil up $1.05. I think oil is a short here. I think that OPEC was a zero. I don't know what, someone threw a wrinkle in on Friday. I don't know if you were watching it, but we were trading it. It would not sell off. It was trading around these levels, and it was so strongly bid. And then someone put out a rumor that they were going to add 500,000 barrels. And the market sold off literally $2.50 straight down, and then rallied about $1 back at the end of the day. So, OPEC did nothing, and that market just came in a bit higher. But I'm not that favorable on it at these high levels. Gold is your gig. It doesn't look like much, and the dollar is virtually. The dollar's actually just gotten a little bit stronger since we've been on the phone. The euro's flat. It was up like 25 pips. So there's nothing going on across the board. A quiet, sleepy Monday. We're going to look for some trades, maybe do some index spreading, put in call spreads, or look at the straddle. Straddle is pricing, again, like I said, very low, about $8. Nothing in there. As far as what's going on today at the Opportunistic Trader, at 10 o'clock, we have Tony Greer talking equity markets. Glad that he's on. Want to ask him a bunch of questions on the cannabis space and see if he's looking at anything else out there. Then at 11 o'clock, I'm going to come on discussing markets and setups and, seeing if there's anything to set up equity index wide, coming into the Fed meeting on Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Adam Collins is coming on at 1:30 to discuss the commitment of trader data. I had the conversation with him last week. It was very informative, and I actually utilize his information to trade off of. And then at 1 o'clock, Joe Vaklovic of Standard Grain will be coming on to discuss the ag markets and the overnight action there. And that's pretty much our schedule. We will be in the chats all day today, and we will be giving our ideas, thoughts, and opinions, and any news that comes out. And I was just wondering if you had any closing thoughts.
Nothing to add except I'm going to start looking at Samsung based on your Apple comment.
Yeah.
You know, if Apple runs into resistance, I don't know. Maybe there's a
Listen, I'm not saying that's happening, or
no,
I think
I'm
it's
not.
gonna
But I'm saying,
happen. But
who's their competitor in phones? It's Samsung. Who's got a better relationship with the Eastern markets? Samsung. I don't know. I'm just looking. Is there a
no,
play
I
there?
think it's the lower end Chinese phones, their own phones, that will do better.
Right.
But it'll be interesting. My phone broke. I actually had to go out and get the iPhone 10, and
How much was that?
Actually, they tell me at AT&T it's free, even though I know it's not. They charge you, I guess, per month. They always tell you my kids always say they're eligible for an upgrade. I'm like, I don't know. Something seems fishy. So the truth is, it's funny that you bring that up. If you actually had to pay for this phone, $1,200 or $1,000, they would sell no phones. Zero. It's the fact that people could finance it over 3 years and pay $20 a month, is how they're able to do it. But I don't find
phones. We're going out on 30-year bonds for phones now.
Yeah, it's 3 years or whatever it is, or 4 years, but I don't see much a difference in this phone from the iPhone 7 that I had. So I don't know. Soon they're going to run out of steam just creating the same phone over and over and over.
Well, that's to your point. They're a bigger company and maybe less innovative, but
and the phone was not sold out, so that's just an interesting takeaway. Phones were not sold out. But anyway, so that's our schedule today. That's my thoughts, which are really not much. Again, I'd like to sell a little bit of weakness in oil. I do think oil is going to fail up here and trade back lower. I don't know if you can get $3, $4, or $5 out of it quickly. Also, into the Fed meeting, it's all commodities should maybe tighten up just because of another rate rise. I think that short rates. Mike, do you have the 2-year up by any chance? Hang on, I'm going to look at the 2-year rate because it's got to be getting.
281.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got to be getting close to 3. I mean, the yield curve is so flat, and the 2-year at 3% sounds like a deal to me. So, you got to keep an eye on that, and we'll see where we're going to go today. Again, not a lot moving. S&P near the morning high. NASDAQ still down 30. So we're going to see the same trade again that we've seen, where they are selling NASDAQ, buying Dow, and leaving the S&P alone. That trade stays intact. It's been that way for the last few weeks. Interesting. I noticed the NASDAQ had 2 down weeks this week and last week. Last week and the week before, and the Dow actually closed at an all-time high, I think, on Friday, or very, very close. It was up. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're going to keep doing that trade until they flatten out these changes with the NASDAQ so outperforming earlier in the year. But the FANG looks vulnerable, to be honest. I don't know if you have an opinion there, but the FANG looks vulnerable to me.
I think there's unresolved news out there. I'm a headline person with those companies. I think there's unresolved social media issues, and the way that they're trying to address congressional problems is they're destroying their own audience. And it's a general statement, but I think they're creating their competition. When you look at companies like Twitter and Facebook starting to, for lack of a better word, censor certain types of content on top of the congressional problems, you're creating your competition. Sites like Steemit are benefiting. I'm surprised there isn't like a conservative Facebook out now. I don't see how they. Uh, I just think of companies like Palm, and I think of companies like MySpace. I mean, the nature of the internet is to destroy protective moats, and Facebook may have. It's not dying by any means, but Facebook may have lived up to its aggressive growth expectations, and from now it's going to fragment.
Well, I think that also, the scrutiny on them is making it more difficult for them to cheat or give out personal information to, you know, advertisers. So, people don't want to pay as much for Facebook advertising because it's not converting. So, it's going to be interesting to see how at the end of the day it all plays out. And I mean, this could be the top in here for that. But again, Facebook is a monster, so I don't think you can mess with it. But we'll keep an eye on all these names in the room. The only takeaway is for today is markets are quiet. If oil comes in, I think it's going to be a short plus 60 or 70 cents on the day. Look to get shorted on some weakness. Other than that, I don't really have much. I'm going to keep an eye on the cannabis stocks, and obviously
That's how the calls
FAANGs.
go, Larry. Usually you don't have much in the call strategically, but in the chat room, tactically, all of a sudden there are ideas that present themselves. And I think that's the way we have to be.
No, for sure. So that's it. I'm going to sign off, and I don't know if you have anything left to say. If not, we will see each other or speak to each other in the chat, and I will be back on at 11 discussing markets. So I wish everybody good luck today, and I hope everybody had a good weekend, and I'll see you guys in the chat.